Alrighty, so we're back in the studio. We got Tim Harms and we got our friend Zach here. Zach is going to talk to us a little bit about flavonoids. Now, Tim had asked, "What is a flavonoid?" And I'm kind of curious myself. So, Zach, you want to bring us up to speed a little bit?
So yeah, guys, here, we always talk about the plant and how complex it truly is, and the three major compounds focused on are cannabinoids, terpenoids, and flavonoids. You can think of the flavonoids like the terpenoids to be what makes a scent or what makes a taste, and that interacts directly with cannabinoids to then give healing powers and benefits to the body. And it's about the different amalgamations and the way you apply them together to truly bring out what those flavonoids have inside them on a molecular level. And that's a healing power that's unheard of.
So tell the listeners out there, Zach, your story and your entry into the cannabis world, into the hemp industry. I mean, it's pretty close to your heart.
So yeah, back here about 10 years ago, my brother and I set out on this adventure where we were able to, take what we had learned previously and apply it to scaling, making a large botanical extraction pure enough to remove the THC out of it in order to provide to people specifically with oncology and cancer-related issues, particularly to a breast cancer patient, which was our mother, and she was diagnosed with a very bad level of triple negative breast cancer. She decided to forego chemotherapy, and we proposed a different method, and that was a very large dose of different cannabinoids, specifically CBD and CBC, cannabichromene, targeting the shrinking of the tumor that was in her left breast. After a 4-month-long intensive cannabinoid shakes every morning with thousands of cannabinoids, we shrunk the tumor, got it small enough that there was no chemotherapy. She did one surgery to have it removed, and she's been in remission since for 7 years. And it gave Brad and I an opportunity to look at what we were doing to help someone, in pain or in need, to learn how to purify these things that you want your mother to take, or you want your family or your daughter or your son to be on, to alleviate issues medically, or, give another option to not be taking other things that's going to cause you other issues in the long run. So it gave us an interesting pathway in order to be Cherokee Indian shaman and make medicine into a business that we were delivering in a safe, concise opportunity.
So I looked at some of your products earlier, and it's wild to me because if you could imagine what I was looking at was kind of a sugar wax looking extract, but it was all of the cannabinoids, all of the plant except for Delta-9, the one molecule that they decided was illegal in 1937. So seeing that product is seeing the plant in a whole different way for me. It's like I was always a THC chaser because I didn't know anything about any of that other stuff. So seeing those kind of products and seeing and hearing the stories and the testimonials and seeing those products work is absolutely phenomenal to me because chemo kills, chemotherapy can kill you. And so cannabinoids, of course, we know for a fact do not. And so when we have something that's detrimental and can destroy us, such as cancer, throwing something else that's supposed to destroy the cancer but also destroys us is a terrible conversation when you compare it to cannabinoids, which can come in and help with everything.
You really what he showed us today, that's a compounding pharmacy 101. That's what these kids have done is they're just recycling history. And they're so far ahead of the game from a science perspective. Look at all the different delivery systems that we're coming up with now. Well, that all starts somewhere.
Right.
Has to start in a lab, and that's what these guys do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in those kind of products because as I get older, and I'm 44 now, and I know I'm almost as old as Steve and Tim, but as I get older, I start to realize that maybe getting high isn't exactly what I'm looking for with this plant. Every week that we spend on this show, we spend time with folks like this, like Zach, who give us lots of education and information. And I'm learning more and more that this plant is a lifestyle and not just a high that I can have at the end of the day or the middle of the day or wake and bake and then an hour after that and 10 minutes after that too. But that's what I mean here is that what I mean to say is it's a blessing to see this plant having a light shown on it like it is. Like we all know that cannabinoids are getting a flashlight shown on them with the COVID thing. They found that some of these cannabinoids, according to some research out there, and listen, we're not doctors or scientists on here. We just know a bunch. But they've found that these cannabinoids are helping with all that. So as we begin to see these things and begin to understand them more, this is why I love being on the show and having this opportunity, so that we can put a flashlight on all these cannabinoids and all this good healthy medicine. Because I mean, you've heard the stories, you've heard the toxic stories. You heard our representatives in Jeff City use the word toxic and harmful and waste and it's really good to hear that we're being talked about. That finally they're fighting over us a little bit. And yeah, it's got a lot to do with taxes too, but that's okay with me because now we get to march our cannabinoids in.
I had to answer that phone. But think about it from just, fighting, quote unquote, the big pharma. I mean, I think people are finally realizing that, there is another alternative other than what we have been brainwashed to say this is going to work for you when it's just, and it hasn't, and look what it's done to lives.
The same thing they said back in the 70s, right? The message hasn't changed. Criminy. I mean, that's what hippies are all about.
Well,
That's right,
baby.
baby.
It's just,
And that's what you are, is an old hippie.
I'm a young hippie.
Right. There you go.
I'm probably one of the youngest hippies, other than Waxy.
That's right.
Well, that is going to do it for us today.
It's been a great show. We got some more wild stuff for you next week. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Tim, Steve, and Billy B. We'll catch you guys next week. Waxy Brown's Flower Power Hour.
You are listening to KKID.